Okay, so it is 11 o'clock on Tuesday, September 6th. I'll call the strategic planning meeting to order. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Kearns and French are present, and Commissioner Cooney is traveling on county business. The first topic for conversation is our county auditor, Ms. Dalton. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So in this past legislative session, the legislature appropriated $2.5 million to be used to increase voter registration and voting among people who are currently incarcerated but are still eligible to vote. So we would like to accept a grant that's being operated through the Secretary of State's office for a portion of that money. We don't have a specific dollar amount because it's going to depend upon what we are able to accomplish. So all counties that have detention facilities will be participating in this to whatever extent that they're able to. In Spokane, we've already started talking with the detention facilities, with Don Hooper and Tammy Weiss in the detention facilities, and with advocates for incarcerated people in the community. And we are coming up with a variety of different methods that can be used to improve and increase voter registration and voting participation in the jails. So we are looking at making some changes to the inmate tracking software so that we can track statistics, and also what we can do to provide information to people who are incarcerated, including things like producing short videos for them to watch while they're in their cells. So just a little bit of what's already happening. So we just want the board to accept the grant, and then we'll continue on. And in the end, the Secretary of State's office has to produce a report back to the legislature by February 1st of 2023. Any questions?
What do you currently do for people that are incarcerated?
So the current way is if people are already registered, and for the few days just prior to election day, if they are incarcerated and they're registered, they can send what's called a kite. And then the jail will inform us that that individual wants a ballot. We'll produce the ballot and send it over to them. There really isn't much in the way of promoting voter registration at this moment. And that actually is a clunky process with very low participation. Just by one change that the jail has already made, the inmates can order a voter registration form so that they can register. They can order that through commissary, and they've already had, as of Thursday of last week, they already had 14 requests for voter registration forms, and one had already been returned. So this is tracking that's required.
Now, Senate Bill 5693 is the budget. So was there a supporting piece of legislation was there like an NTIB bill that put this in, or was this just somebody put money in the budget to fund this?
It's very, very short. It's literally about, the summary I have is about 2 or 3 inches long. Yeah,
no, it's page 37 in the 872 page bill, and yeah, it's about a paragraph long. So but so that there was no supporting legislation that put this in the budget?
No, there was not.
Okay, so what do you visualize the use of it? You mentioned a video possibly, so I assume that would be under the create voting materials specific to the jail population. What else, I guess?
So there would be materials such as posters
Okay.
that would be hosted in the detention facility itself. There would be informational packets that would go to at least some of the inmates, the ones that request them. We'll be providing the voter pamphlets themselves, the ones that were already required to print, will be going in there, but they have to be modified because they can't have staples. So we have to actually take the staples out. That's going to take a little bit of cost. And then, as I said, the jail personnel are coming up with some really great ideas on how to improve information and voter registration for the inmates. It will be very effective. So we're looking at processes that are going to be 365 days a year rather than just those few days prior to election day. And those include like the videos that will explain registering to vote, that will explain how to cast a ballot, how to mark the ballot. The videos will not talk about candidates or campaigns or anything like that. It's just the mechanics of how to register and how to mark your ballot. And then, of course, any of the changes we need to make to the inmate tracking system in order to track any of these statistics, because we do need to report them out.
So how will an inmate be informed as to the position of a candidate to be able to make an informed decision?
The printed voters pamphlets.
That's the only source of information.
At this point, I believe so. And keep in mind that this is just the beginning. This is like the pilot project. And every one of the counties that have detention facilities are going to have to do things a little bit differently because of each facility's resources or lack thereof.
So if you're a candidate that's campaigning on a position of being tough on crime, obviously you're not going to get a lot of votes out of the jail. And the inverse of that also would apply.
We don't speculate how people vote. We just need to make sure that they have the opportunity to register, to receive a ballot, and to return that ballot.
Okay.
What, any ballpark estimates on what how many or what percentage of our jail population is registered to vote?
At this moment, no. That is one of the things that we hope to accomplish. And I should have said, we also expect to be able to pay for some of the personnel costs at the jail in relationship to this project. And one of those things is to survey the people who are incarcerated as to what their current voter registration status is. And they're even looking at the possibility of doing that here at intake. Our jail is really coming up with some very elegant, very easy to implement ideas that should produce some good information, but it's going to take some money to make it happen, and the money is available.
So would these be additional staff that you would hire on with these funds? Or would these just cover some of the cost of your existing employees going over there and doing this work?
Probably existing employees at this point.
Okay, because haven't you come to us and said that you're kind of short on employees? So is this a good use of existing employees' time to go and, you know, sort of try to shag votes in the jail?
So the way that we're envisioning this for our county jail is it will be current jail personnel who are the first contact. In all likelihood, it won't be any election staff going over to the jail unless we need to take something over like the disability, the voting device for someone who has a disability and can't mark it off. So this really is about being able to cover costs for jail personnel, including overtime if needed. And Pierce County has already done that. So they've already done an event in their jail and we've covered the costs of the jail personnel.
What if we don't accept the grant?
I think we're going to need to follow through with what we've already started.
Who started what?
We've already started working on it because we don't have much time between now and the general election. So there's already been some changes made into the inmate tracking system. It didn't take much time or effort. It's producing some good results.
At whose direction?
Discussions between myself and the jail.
Okay.
We don't have much time.
I think maybe you might have gotten ahead of yourself a little bit before coming to us to see if we're gonna take the money.
We need to move forward with this. Yes, I would have liked to have come earlier, but sometimes that's just, we have to work within the timeline we have for the election.
Al, I think Mike may have had his hand raised.
I'm sorry, Mike Barber, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted, this is kind of spun out of the ACLU's on the voting, within the jail. 2 years ago, we worked with the ACLU to set up the voting packets within the jail. And Vicky's right, we handle it through a commissary. They make it known to us that they want to vote. We send up the forms to them, and then they're allowed to vote that way. This is kind of and at the time they talked about this, this is a secondary kind of step on what the ACLU wanted, which was give them the opportunity to register while they're on jail too. So it wasn't a surprise to me that it came down and that we were gonna have to eventually look at it. What we're talking about doing, I think will take low man hours. We're going to add it to our tablets, and just by the way of information, commissioners, so that they know that it's available to them and that they have the opportunity to register to vote if they want to. Once they make the registration notice that they want to, Vicky's office will determine whether or not they can register as voters, and from that point we'll move forward, as quick as we can.
And this is an opportunity for us to develop a process that will work for our detention facilities, because I would not be surprised that at some point in the near future, there is a bill introduced into the legislature. And this is our ability, our opportunity to create processes that we can actually perform rather than having processes dictated to us that we cannot reasonably perform.
And I see the funds, commissioners, primarily for producing the pamphlets, doing the work that we need to on the tablets to get the information out on the tablets so it's available to them. I don't anticipate that will cause a lot of manpower issues or even, a dramatic amount of overtime over at the jail. But Don Hooper and Tammy Weiss, who's been a big part of this, have developed a plan that they think is going to be non-labor intensive and still accomplish the same goals.
Okay.
Mike, where are we at today on what's the average length of stay in the jail?
It depends on which charge we're talking, Commissioner. If we're talking about the Class A felons, it ranges up into the 200 days. In the B felonies, and this is June data that I'm giving you, so it would have to be updated and refreshed. They were in the neighborhood of 170 days, and then it goes 90 days for Class C felons, and then drops down from that point on. So,
but traditionally we have an average stay that's 16, 17 days, right?
Yeah. So
overall population.
Yes,
the
sir.
People that are booked into the jail.
Yes, sir. So for the typical person that's coming in and going through the initial booking phase and then the first appearance phase, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 days.
Okay. So we got the average population in there cycles through and they're out in 17 days. If they're registered to vote, people have their ballots, what, about 21 days?
Yeah, anytime during that 21 days.
So in theory, if somebody is in there the average amount of time, they would still have time to get home and get their ballot once they're released, correct?
Not if they're still in jail, because remember, we are a same-day registration state. So up until 8 days prior to election day, you can register through the mail.
Okay.
And then that's the other part that we're trying to work out, is that 8 days prior to election day and election day. Are those gonna be counted as in-person registrations?
So do you see this more the benefit of getting people that are registered to vote to be able to vote, or finding people in jail that aren't registered to vote and getting them to vote?
It's both.
It's both.
I think that is the intent of this project, is to register people to vote, and then during that period right before election day and on election day, being able to get a ballot to anyone who is incarcerated and unable to receive their ballot in a meaningful manner.
Okay. So just gonna see if I understand this. So this seems to be more driven that individuals that have been arrested with probable cause by a law enforcement officer, seem to there be probable cause by a judge to be held in jail, should have their voice be more represented in the voting population. Is that sort of the nexus for the concept of this funding?
I do not know the entire background of why this project was created.
Okay.
I just know what is in the bill that creates the project, creates funding, and it creates an opportunity for us to work on processes that have a high probability, in my opinion, in the future of being adopted. So we can either have a say in this process, or we live with whatever the legislature chooses to create.
Well, I have concerns with this, and honestly, I think if we participate in a pilot program like this, I think at the end of the day, we know how much the legislature cares about what we think here locally. They're gonna do what they want anyway, so I'm not sold on it, and I don't really know if,
Well, it's not.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it's not on our agenda for this afternoon. So maybe what we need to do is have some more conversation about this. And maybe for next week when Mary's back, the three of us can have a conversation about it. And in the meantime, get a little bit more information about what how this is going to impact things. So I think we probably share some of your concerns. And maybe the best path is just to not accept the grant, but don't know that for sure. So let us regurgitate on it and come back and talk some more.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Petrovich,
Thank you, Commissioners.
how are you doing?
Good. How are you guys today?
Good.
Well, we're here to give you a tabulation and a roll-up per our scheduled calendar of events for the budget preparation. Just as a reminder, today we're presenting the preliminary budget roll-up to the board. October 11th, we have our first public roundtable. And then in November, we'll have our, on November 8th, we'll have our second public roundtable. And at the end of the month, on the 29th, we'll have our third public roundtable for budget hearings. And then our scheduled adoption date for the 23 budget is teed up for December 5th. So the reason we're here again is to present the preliminary budget roll-up to the board. And that's what you have in your 3-ring binder in the packets that have been prepared by Tessa and the staff to give you some detailed information on what was submitted by the department. And these are just their raw submissions. We have just tabulated them and arranged them in a fashion that you can digest it at this time. we've done no further analysis other than to just compile it and present it. And we can start going through the numbers and presenting it at this time. But there's a couple of top level observations that I want to make. And as it relates to the total roll-up of all funds, this year with the total annual expenditures and annual expenditures for continuing appropriations, the total budget right now sits at $834 million. And last year's adopted budget was $677 million in total. Then the other observation I'd like to call your attention to is that on the general fund, right now we're looking at a budget deficit of about $3.2 million. But that includes a personnel contingency of 6.5. So if we didn't have that contingency in there, you'd have a surplus of 3.3. So with that, I will also turn it over to Tessa and budget staff to lead you through the detailed information that you have in the 3-ring binder.
Yeah, so we'll keep focused on that general fund page there. Right now, our property tax assumption is holding true to what we discussed in our workshop a couple weeks ago. No 1% and no shift. So that is just our base property tax estimate for 2023, including an estimate for new construction. We do anticipate new construction to be certified later this month, so we'll provide an update end of September, early October for that figure when we get it. Sales and use tax, we have assumed a 2% growth on projected 2022 actuals. Again, same consistency that we did in our workshop a couple weeks ago. And then we have all the rest of our kind of standard reoccurring revenues. We have our charges for services is going up a bit in 2023 related to our law enforcement contract, jail contract, other jurisdiction contracts. Our motor vehicle licenses are also a charge for service fee. We see a drop off in fines and penalties. We received in 2022 and adopted a portion of the one-time legislative funds that we kind of just tucked in there. The legislature gave us $2 million for law enforcement changes. And so a portion of that was used in the 2022 adopted budget. Other financing sources drops off a bit for the HSSA income we received related to debt service that has also fallen off. That program ends the end of this year. On the expenditure side, we have our salaries and wages, which, as Gary said, does have a personnel contingency included in there. That includes all of our positional budgeting with benefit assumptions, a slight increase to medical rates on the employer contribution side. Supplies and services are pretty standard. There is a slight increase for some IT services, but most people, all departments did a very good job of holding their M&O budgets at their 2022 level. There are just a few other kind of nuances in there, shifting from some other areas. Governmental transfers drops off significantly due to no property tax shifting back to the roads fund. So that's a transfer out, and that is not included right now.
And last year's transfer out to the road fund was about $4.2 million.
Correct. Capital, we have asked everyone to request all capital projects through the 6-year capital planning portion of our budget. The only thing that is included in there is kind of our standard sheriff's vehicle replacement plan right now, plus vehicle purchases for the City of Spokane Valley law enforcement contract. And then debt service is down. Again, the HSSA debt is falling off. We were able to eliminate the Raceway Park debt, so that is no longer included in here.
And that was about $500,000 a year.
A little more than that, yeah. And that is how we arrived at our preliminary 2023 budget.
Any questions on that, Commissioner?
Followed it, thank you.
On the
Do you have
next,
anything to you, Josh?
Well, I guess, so on the salaries and wages, the 12 million increase, is that anticipating, so that's including anticipated costs of, contracts that are not yet settled?
that is, there is contingency for
Or-
potential contract
And that's
impacts.
in that number?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
Yep, as well as all the other contracts that were settled, so
Yeah,
the
okay.
sheriff's increase, the jail increases, those are all baked into the positional budgeting.
Okay.
details.
So it's a plus up of 6
Yeah, in that
In that
number.
In that one
Okay,
line, yep, it's
okay.
in that one
I
line.
just wanted to make that wasn't tucked somewhere else.
Nope.
Okay, gotcha.
Also, keep in mind that we had vacancy savings identified to the tune of $7.2 million.
We were running, some very strong vacancies across some of our large county departments, and we're able to calculate some of that in here as well. On the next page of that same tab in your binder is the agency breakdown for the general fund. So that's just kind of department by department, a different view of all the information. Non-departmental is where we have a lot of the shift transfer out and things, so that budget looks drastically different every year, depending on what we decide to do.
So detention services, we've got a $2 million.
Yeah, that's the
Increase.
contract implementation is a
Okay.
large portion of that.
Economic development gets cut in half. So
Yes.
budgeted from
Yep.
22, and actually, yeah, actuals in 22 was half of what was budgeted.
Yeah, and that's because we've gotten some more clarity into our PDA payments that we'll be making, and our projected actuals, we think our liability is less than what we'd originally anticipated.
Auditor is 1.3 million above actuals from this year for budgeted for next year.
Yes, they have their election cycle. So next year they have 3 full elections coming.
Okay.
All the schools plan to be on the ballot plus the city elections.
Okay.
So a large portion of that, and then a lot of that is build out. So they also will be getting revenue.
Yeah, I was gonna say they charge for those.
Yeah, they charge, but we have to plan to budget it. We
Yeah,
have to pay
okay.
for it all first, and then they bill it out. And then the auditor's office also had some vacancy savings in 2022 in their financial services division that will not be there in 2023. They've been able to staff up late this year. They've recently gotten to full staffing. Again, why their projected actuals are looking so low as well.
Okay.
Some savings there.
So I noticed in the commissioner's office, you've got that 600,000 plus, that's for the new commissioners as well as
Assistance
assistants
for each of them.
for each of them.
Yep.
And then, but additional workload as it relates to Mark's office and Scott and everything, that's scattered somewhere else in here
Correct.
as well.
Yep.
So the plus up is probably much greater. I mean, I've been saying, the 2 new commissioners are probably going to cost us at least $500,000, but I've been undershooting that number. It's probably going to be something closer to maybe $750,000 by the time you plus it up with Mark's staff's time and Scott's staff time and everything else. Is that a fair number? I just want to make sure that I'm accurate when I reflect what this burden is going to be to the taxpayers.
Yeah, I think right now, 600,000 is just commissioner office only with all the staff as well as other ancillary costs, M&O costs that go into that. And I think you're right, Commissioner, there's probably other stuff that are sprinkled throughout, and I don't think 750 is out of the range.
Okay, thank you.
DEM saw a large jump for the size of their department.
Yes, emergency management, the federal grants that they've relied heavily on for a long time have changed their kind of programming, what they'll pay for. And the federal grants are now needing local dollars to pay for staff, and the federal dollars can pay for supplies and equipment and specialty training, overtime things instead.
And Tessa, those expenses, if I recall correctly, used to be in another fund, those personnel that were reimbursed by the
grants.
Grants, yeah.
And now they would, those positions and those added costs would be contemplated in our contract for service with our local jurisdictions, the city and other groups that share in those costs.
So the big move in Superior Court, about $500,000. Second to the bottom,
Off of actuals, yeah.
off of actuals.
They have had some vacancies with JAs turning over. They've had some judicial assistants come and go. We expect them to be fully staffed going into next year.
Okay. So public defender is up 800,000. Is that just salaries or is that something else?
Salaries. They'd had some grant funding that they were able to leverage for the 2022 budget, and they've had some vacancies. That we have not applied a vacancy rate to public defense for next year.
I just noticed that their number actually increased from a percentage standpoint greater than prosecuting attorney's numbers did. And so is that relative to staffing levels, or is there some other dynamic that's going on there that I ought to be aware of?
We applied a vacancy adjustment to the prosecutor's office.
All right. Okay, thank you.
So are we just more confident going into 23 that we're gonna fill vacancies than we were in 2022? I mean, it seems we're talking sort of
I know.
Very
Yes,
we're
it really
pretty
does.
sure people are gonna decide next year they want to work.
They definitely want to work next year, I think.
Be
I hope.
optimistic. So
no,
why?
a lot of the increases are salary increases due to contracts, especially in the sheriff and the detention services. They both have healthy vacancy adjustments applied.
For the sheriff, we applied a 3.7 million vacancy adjustment. For detention services, 2.4 million.
Yeah. Well, no, but some of the other departments we've gone through, it seems you're optimistic people are going to want to work for the county next year, more so than maybe people are interested this year.
I think like Superior Court, I would say with new judges coming on, I think we'll just see new judicial assistants gung ho to stay, and as judges are leaving.
Do we have any new judges in Superior Court? Who?
We had,
Replacement for Moreno.
Marino?
and then,
Oh, an appointment. Oh, okay.
and then Judge Clark this month is leaving.
Harold Clark?
Yeah.
He's done the end of the month.
Oh, well, you just put a bummer on this discussion. He's a good guy. That's too bad. Oh, okay, so
I think, yeah, we've seen some
Okay.
folks leaving as their judges are going, or they're seeking other employment, and they may not
Gotcha.
stay for the next one.
okay.
I think it's fair to say, though, Commissioner.
I didn't know he was leaving. That actually is pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
Oh,
You'll
It's
see
too
in
bad.
the next sheets that Tessa will share with you where we currently sit on vacancies right now.
Mhm.
So we didn't go to every department to apply a vacancy adjustment. We went to the ones that had larger vacancies and did them there. But that's just our baseline assumption. There's
Yeah.
certainly some additional, and obviously we have some work to do with a $3.2 million shortfall right now. We'll have to tweak that a little bit more. So there still are opportunities to look critically at some of those departments that you had mentioned and see if we ought to do the same.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I don't think we're not gonna be staffed. We're not gonna be staffed back up, which is why we did the
Yeah.
vacancy adjustments.
Yeah, so is what Scott's speaking to, is that kind of why, like, if you would look at animal control, at the time, we budgeted them over 4 million, they only spent just under 3.3, where this year we're only gonna budget them 3.6, I mean, is that, because I know they've struggled with staffing, is that what explains why their budgeted next year is so much less than what it was last year?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, because of that vacancy adjustment.
So non-departmental looks like a pretty good roller coaster ride.
It is.
So,
So that's where we put all of our contingency dollars
okay,
and what we plan to spend. A lot of times those dollars get shifted out to other areas to be spent. So we budget it there and then I transfer it to the jail if their budget runs short, things like that for special projects. So we had capital contingency dollars that we've transferred this year to the jail to help remodel the kitchen, things like that. So that one fluctuates the most.
So the personnel adjustment in there for contingency is 6.5 million.
okay. Okay. Next.
Next, FTE data, next tab. This right now is just the number of authorized FTEs. We've got it contextualized a little with some as of dates, end of 2021, 8/31/2022, what's in our 2023 budget as far as how we've started Questica and our positional budgeting for the departments. And then we have filled and vacant, and then the 2023 requests for FTEs.
And the first blocking of groupings there is the departments and agencies that are associated with public safety. So that's why it's grouped the way it is.
As those departments are usually more interdependent on each other, and staffing up in one place usually means staffing in another. So the entire first page is the general fund.
So, help me, so for 22, for commissioners, I understand the numbers. But when we jump from 11 to 15, I'm assuming that's the 2 new commissioners plus their staff, gets us to 15. And then when you go over and you say vacant, you've got 5 people that are vacant.
Shaylin.
Yep, your front desk.
Front desk, got it, okay, all right, thank you.
That was almost a trick question. You had me panicking thinking
Oh.
that one.
I didn't know whether you
Al,
were
we thought with your seniority, you should get an additional staff member. But if you don't want it, well, we can.
No, what I was worried about is it's vacant. I was thinking, do you guys know something I don't know?
Yes, you remember Shaylin? Do you remember?
You're following her. I forgot how fun you guys are. So you've got the sheriff's department vacant by 63 people?
I mean, we don't.
No, I know that. I know that. No, normal.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they have a lot of vacancies. Same with detention services at 53. Quite shocking.
That doesn't help us at G&A.
Shh.
But that, it's lower.
Okay.
So 66 is the total requested FTEs for the general fund.
For 2023.
One more time,
So-
what was that, Gary?
66 on the bottom right hand, you'll see the total for the general fund, 66 positional requests.
So So for 2023, are we not opening up the pools?
Swimming pools?
Yeah. I don't know, at the bottom it says remove pool positions.
Oh.
Just asking.
HR, it says vacant is negative 0.6, so does that mean they have more than they did at the start of the year? And then also purchasing has a negative 0.5, so again, does that?
So I can answer that. Can you guys hear me, commissioners?
Meaning they just have more than they did back on this date that we're pegging it to of December of 21?
Ashley, we
So-
can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So it was actually, I think, the way that everything got budgeted last year. So I actually asked for 3 part-times for 2022, and then one of my officers passed. And so we wound up filling it with a full-time, well, it's a 30-hour a week, so it's a percentage. But I think it's the way that it's rolling out on the budget side. Also, I noticed that they had been coded into extra help or portions of their salary. And then we changed our funds this year too. We went to a 1 fund. So I think there's some noise in that data, but we do still have the appropriate, based on what we agreed to at the beginning of 2022, headcount for that parking team. I just think it looks funny for some reason. And I noticed that this morning as well.
So what are the 2 new positions you're asking for?
A third HR generalist, because we have not enough HR support based on how many headcount we have. So I've asked for 1 HR generalist and 1 program coordinator, which will assist benefits. Benefits used to be a 2-person position. It's been 1 for many years. And as we continue to see rising costs of benefits and we try to wrap our arms around new options, as well as the state leave that has put a tremendous amount of burden on our departments and our office, I need someone who can manage at least 50% of it. The person right now's job is managing leave programs. And then the new person would take on more of the admin type duties she's doing with keying things into the system, tracking benefits, so that she can start being more strategic and get our benefits to a place where they continue to be sustainable in future years.
And then the 0.5 on purchasing is again extra help, or was kind of considered extra help, moved to full-time mailroom position.
There's 2 positions they want as well.
Yeah, and then so if you flip over to the next tab, Commissioner Kearns, all of the positional and M&O requests are itemized by department. So you can get some more insight as to what those FTE requests are really looking like. And there was only 1 requested FTE in the other funds, and that was for risk management.
So, since Todd's here, maybe he can help refresh my memory as well. But it seems like for as long as I've been here, we've been hovering around that 2,000 to 2,100 employees. And we will fluctuate down or low depending upon what the budget is and obviously what the employment market is. But as we've worked our way through those years where we had lower employment levels, we put into place efficiencies that would compensate for the fact that we didn't have employees. And so our systems are smoother, better, runs faster, jumps higher, all that kind of stuff. But yet, when I look at this, and when you look at the number of vacancies plus our current level, we're getting back to 2,100 as a target for our employment level. And I guess I'm wondering, with the efficiencies that we've achieved, why is that reduction in staff not a permanent reduction as opposed to a targeted reduction? Is that making sense?
Makes a lot of sense. It's a great, absolutely great question. Ashley, you want to chime in any at all on that one?
Yeah, so actually, Commissioner, I brought this up last week when I met with senior leadership. And I agree. Scott and I have been talking about this. I think there's a new way that we should be looking at headcount. Do we have all the efficiencies we need to be understaffed by almost 300 right now? No, people are thin right now in some departments, but in others they're not. And so what I've been speaking with Scott about and with budget about was really digging in with departments in 2023 and looking organizationally at what positions do we need and what do we not need? And if we do need technologies and efficiencies, how do we make those a one-time purchase out of fund balances potentially so that we can continue to prop up the systems, but keep a more neutral headcount? So that is directly a conversation that we had last Thursday. And even as we've seen headcounts come in, I've been working with Jason and Tessa in the budget office, looking at the ask versus the vacancy to start asking those questions of, how is it really going? Do we really need the extra headcount, or do we need to look at other options? So I concur. I don't think we'll ever get back to that 2,100 mark. We are understaffed right now by, off the top of my head, I want to say 360 positions. We're not going to be able to hire that back plus add some, but I do think it's going to have to be with your direction, commissioners, that the department heads and our other electeds really sharpen their pencil and determine, are we really in need of adding headcount, or do we really just need to get staffed back to an adequate level? And I think it probably falls a bit more towards that latter option.
What's our number? What's our number today of FTEs countywide? Because like Al said, we bounced between 2,000 and 2,100. What are we today?
When I looked last week, we were like 1870, 1880, somewhere in there. So there are some departments that are extremely thin. Yeah, and then there's others that probably don't need to backfill as much. So I really think a full analysis of the org needs to happen throughout 2023.
No, they point out it's in here. So
okay.
1810. So you can see countywide we're almost 300 headcount short. And ERP is a good example of technology investments to help us then kind of re-level set on the FTEs. Both Commissioner Kearns and I sit on the workforce boards, and the employment rate and participation rate continue to be a constant theme. And it's kind of counterintuitive. We're seeing low unemployment, and yet there are jobs posted everywhere. The county's no exception here. We have about a 10% vacancy rate, well, probably about a 12 to 13% vacancy rate, and other businesses aren't able to fill jobs as well. The interesting data point is our labor participation rate, according to the economists and those that track the jobs and the job statistics. Our labor participation rate has dropped. And what their observations have been is during COVID, people who could be in the workforce chose to no longer be in the workforce and don't appear to be coming back. So I don't think this is a trend that's going to reverse for us. I don't think we're going to be back up to 2,100, if at all. And so for us, as we look into the future, we've got to be ready to evaluate where technology can help us sustain those lower workforce levels, and doing some one-time strategic sort of investments in our systems. And ERP is one of those examples. There's other ones out there as well. Even a good example is the things that Gil's doing with looking at investments with the campus HVAC systems and whatnot that might help us get to systems that don't require so many employees to maintain those things.
Well, I can understand that if investments in technology make you more efficient so that you can do more things, that's one thing, and that would affect your employment level. But I don't know that we are really doing a whole lot of more things. We're doing what we traditionally do, hopefully a little bit more efficiently, because we don't have the people to be able to do it the way we used to.
Which honestly is something we've heard in every budget that I've been a part of. We hear from every department, if you buy me this piece of equipment, I can be more efficient. It'll save us money in the long run. But I didn't always believe it when I was told that, and now the numbers are coming to show us that, well, you shouldn't have believed it. So
I think it's one of the benefits that we are seeing in our project management office is getting, when we have projects and technology opportunities, having really good, clear charts at the front end that says, what is the issue that we're trying to solve on? What are the potential solutions and what are the outcomes that we expect? And as those things move through and get implemented, we're tracking what the outcomes of it are and seeing for actually realizing what the projected savings might have been, so that we're not just letting it go into a black hole, if you will, and never being able to see what the benefits of those are. So those will be some benefits we'll see from the continued project management support across the county.
Okay.
When I look at the details here for the FTA request, see Superior Court, they snuck in their 13th judge again. Are the other 3 positions related to that? Are they dependent on that 13th judge? And then are any of the 3 in the clerk's office dependent on that 13th judge?
So the judicial assistant and court reporter would be dependent on the judge,
Okay, not the IT
not the
professional?
IT professional.
Okay, and then.
And the clerks are not reflective of that number.
Okay, so if they got that 13 judge, there would be even more
clerk
people
requests.
that would need to be hired. So
Correct.
So we're talking, so we would certainly clear $500,000 with the new judge, and that doesn't even include the capital cost of building a new courtroom either.
Correct.
Okay.
And keep in mind, none of these supplementals are included in the budget that you're seeing. These are additional requests on top of the draft preliminary budget for the general fund.
Okay.
So all those supplementals total, is that what's on the last page here?
Correct.
6.5 million?
For the FTEs.
For
And then
FTEs.
2.8 as well for M&O costs.
So it's a combination of both.
Yes.
Well, of course it is. Silly me.
And there is funding sources listed. There are a couple, not many, but a couple of requests that could be satisfied with other funding sources, such as there's a public defense is asking for an attorney one for the Involuntary Treatment Act Civil Commitment Court. That could be funded by mental health sales tax. Some of the sheriff's requests may be shared with the city of Spokane Valley or entirely the city of Spokane Valley. And then risk management's FTE that they've requested would be in their enterprise funds.
So not everything's gonna be hit on the general fund, it's, yeah. Okay.
And the last tab is for your midnight reading, which includes all of the detail by department and a breakdown both on the revenue and expenditure side
Compares 21, 22, and 23.
and multi-years.
I really like this package. Thank you. It's a lot of info.
I like this.
Good info and it's easy to follow. So thank you. Yeah. Just similar to what we had over at the city. Yeah.
And so we will make all of this information available on our website later today, so anybody can go and find it and see it. And then in the coming weeks, we'll continue to develop the 6-year capital plan listing of projects, everything that's been kind of sent into us. And we'll share capital update with you guys later September, October timeframe. As Gary said earlier, we have public roundtables starting in October. And then we do have some workshops that we'd like to schedule for departments to come in and talk more about their supplemental requests, to give you guys just some more contextual information.
Okay.
I guess one, in addition to that stuff, just some takeaways, highlighting the fact that we do have a $3.2 million preliminary shortfall. Again, this is not done, so we have some work to do on it. Some of those things could be addressed through reassessing our revenue assumptions. Some of them will have to be addressed through reassessing some of our expense trend lines in there as well. Obviously, our objective and requirement is to present a balanced budget for the commissioners to consider. We're not there yet, but it gives you at least a first blush at what the team thinks is where we're landing today, and then more work to do. So
I'd like to also suggest that maybe you risk test some of the contingency amounts and whether they really need to be included in the budget as contingencies, or do we leave that in the reserves?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, nice work. Appreciate it. All right, Mr. Simmons.
Let's see here, Commissioner, do we wanna, we've got one executive session item to discuss performance of a public employee.
Two executive session items.
Yeah. Two, and then do we wanna do miscellaneous before we jump to executive session?
Yes.
I think the two miscellaneous items are for the awareness commissioners on the agenda for the fair, which is this Friday, opening day ceremony. Just want to have your eyes on that, and each of you have some anticipated talking times. I think we're 10:40 is when we're scheduled to open the have the opening remarks for the fair, and then ribbon cutting by 11. The other one is the Skrills agenda, which is on Friday of next week. Yep. So if you're good with that, we'll let Kathleen know she can publish that agenda.
Do we know why certain things are highlighted in yellow?
I do not.
They're tentative, I think is what it was.
Oh, okay,
Tentative items?
Yeah, they hadn't confirmed.
okay.
So, I think I actually need to memorialize that with a motion.
Yeah, no, I know, but is there any changes here? But everything looks good.
No, I'm fine with it, you know, if you are, I am.
Yeah, no, looks fine for me.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner French, I move to approve the agendas as presented for both Spokane County Interstate Fair opening day ceremony on September 9th, 2022, and the Spokane County Regional Interlocal Leadership Structure meeting set for September 16th, 2022.
I'll second the motion.
Testimony, public comment.
And got a motion and a second, so I will now open up for any testimony for anybody in the audience or anybody that is online that would like to provide any testimony on the agendas for either the opening day ceremony for the Spokane County Interstate Fair or the Spokane County Regional Interlocal Leadership Structure meeting agenda.
It's all staff on.
All staff online. So, and nobody here from the public. So second and third final call. Seeing nobody jump up. Call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. I love those tough ones. Okay, so we're going to go into executive session for two purposes. One is to discuss the performance of a public employee.
Those would be the
Before we do that, I just want to, so what date does that come before us? Like next Tuesday, Gina? Next week?
September
13th. So September 13th is when we will have the new proposed Newman Lake Flood Control District, the new boundaries, because remember we hired the three appraisers based on the law that passed the legislature. Do we want another briefing exactly on how that works, how that goes? Because it will be a public hearing. There could be folks that show up that have questions about the new maps, about the process. Is that something maybe next Monday we might want just a little primer on what exactly the process was, what went into the new maps, how they did it, what changes are actually there?
And the AG's opinion.
Oh, yeah, and there's
Waiting on, has a.
That's not come back yet.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, can
I
we
think it would
add
be
that?
beneficial to
Yeah,
have.
add that to the briefing for Monday. Yeah,
Got it.
thank you. So we have two executive sessions for this morning. One is on the performance of public employee, and that will include Mr. Simmons.
Two commissioners, our senior leadership team, and our chief civil, Mark McLean.
And the second one is,
Oh, that's 10 minutes, Mike? Yeah, 10 minutes.
okay. And then the second one will include, be pending potential litigation, and that would probably include all of the same people and shouldn't last more than 10 minutes. So when we are through with the two executive session items, we will then be adjourned until our 2 o'clock legislative session this afternoon. All right, so it is now 12:02. We'll give our staff time to shut down. What's that?
No,
There'll be no action taken as a result of the executive sessions. So then we'll go until 12:23.